Hey everyone, welcome to Recombinant Teaching. This is going to be our first real episode of the STEM course design series. And in this one, I want to give you kind of an overview of my philosophy and where I'm coming from with course design before we dive into the nuts and bolts of backward design and learning objectives and assessments and activities and all that. I want to give you kind of a little background primer on how I've been trained and how I've been designing courses for over 10,000 students in the last 15 years or so that I've been teaching in higher ed. And so I'll give you a little history of where I've come from with this, and this will ground us in some of the major principles and guidance for what I want to do here over this series, over these next many episodes. So with this in mind, so let's start here. So when I go give workshops for faculty and administrators at various higher ed institutions across the country, I often pose this scenario. So I like to say, okay, so imagine as soon as we're done with this workshop, you check your email. Because, you'd never check your email during the workshop, right? It's so engaging and exciting. You don't want to look ahead or look away. So when this is over, you check your email, though, and you get an email from your department head or your chair, and it says, hey, guess what? Lucky you. Starting next week, you got to teach a brand new class. Never taught before. Well, okay. So you might have some things go through your mind. You might panic, you might freak out, all these things, but it's actually not that untrue of a scenario. I have met people across the country who that has happened to them. It's been a Friday and they get an email saying, hey, on Monday, sorry, someone dropped out. We lost an adjunct, something like that. You got to teach. So suppose you get that question posed to you or that scenario posed to you, and you don't have a choice to say no. You have to do it. So where do you start with course design? That's my question I pose to my audience, is where do you start with course design? And I give them some time to think about it. And, I like to use this analogy of being dropped in the middle of the woods. All right. So let's say you open your eyes and you're in the middle of the woods. Here in Colorado, if it's the fall, we got the beautiful gold aspens. If it's back east where I grew up in Pennsylvania, we have all the colors of all the maples and all the oranges and reds, and it's gorgeous. But you look around, right, and there's no path, there's no trail. It's just untouched nature. It smells great. It's quiet. It's beautiful. It's a bluebird sky. It's amazing. You can do whatever you want. You can go wherever you want. And that's really empowering, right? But then you start to maybe walk around a little bit and you start to let things sink in. And then you notice, oh yeah, there is no trail. There is no path. I don't know how to get out of here. You start to get a little nervous. The hair on your arm starts to raise up. You get goosebumps. Maybe you start to feel a little hungry and you realize you don't have any food. You hear a twig snap and you turn around real fast. You think, oh no, that was just a squirrel. That was nothing, nor a rabbit. No big deal. If you're in Colorado, that definitely wasn't a cow moose. That wasn't a mountain lion or a bear, right? So, and then you realize, yeah, I can't get out of here. My wife's going to kill me. I won't be at home in time to pick up the kids. All these things go through your mind, right? And it gets really scary. So why is this related to course design? Well, course design is simultaneously empowering and freeing, but it's also scary. And you can go down rabbit holes and get lost. So when you think about designing a course again, you can do whatever you want. You can take it whatever direction you want. It's your course, your deliverables, your goals, your outcomes for your students. Yeah, you might say, well, no, actually that's not true because I'm teaching, a Gateway STEM course. I'm teaching Bio 1 or Calc 1 at my school and I have a very rigid set of expectations. Sure, I totally understand that. I've been in that boat too before. But even with that, you do have flexibility to design assessments, to design assignments, to handle what happens in the actual meeting times with your students, right? You get that Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 50 minutes. That's your time to be really creative and shine. So you do have some control over that, right? And how you talk and how you handle things. And that can be, again, really empowering. It's really exciting, but especially if it's a brand new elective that you've never taught before, that no one on your campus has taught before. You can do whatever you want with it. So course design can be really great, really positive, really exciting. But again, on the other hand, it can be pretty scary. It can be really intimidating. If you don't have that path, if you don't have that trail, you don't have that guide, you can go down countless rabbit holes and not know where to come out of it on the plus side. And it's not just wasted time in this design effort, right? You can make design decisions that end up really hurting your students in the long run. If you don't have clear expectations, if you don't have well-aligned activities, assessments, and outcomes, if you don't have a plan for their success and for your own personal success too, as a faculty member, as an instructor, as a teacher, teacher, that can all go awry. And that can make course design really daunting and really overwhelming. And you don't know where to turn to next. So I'm going to talk to you today in the rest of this episode about high structure course design. That's the model I believe in and I've been using for, again, over 15 years, 10,000 students. It works. There's evidence for it. But you don't have to do that. I don't really care, honestly, which method you use for course design. Maybe you like high structure, maybe you like POGIL, maybe you like flipped models, maybe you like something else I've never heard of. That's okay. The point is to have a guide, to have a path, to have a trail that you can follow that will lead you to a positive course design experience and outcomes for you and your students. Ideally, that guide is evidence-based. Ideally, it's been tried and tested. And if it's not, well, hey, maybe you got great data. Maybe you got anecdotes. Maybe you have evaluations and support that shows that it works. That's awesome too. And then you can share that with the world as well. So again, that's what we're going to talk about today is high structure. But again, whatever you want to do, just have an evidence-based guide to direct you with your teaching and your course design. You'll be in good hands. All right. So what is high structure course design? So first of all, yes, I did write a book on it. Came out 2025 from Macmillan. You can check it out in the link in the notes. But big caveat, big admission here, not my idea, right? Okay, so I did not invent high structure course design. I'm just a practitioner of it. I've been using it again since going back even to 2012, 2011-ish when I first heard about it. So I've been using it a long time. Big shout outs to the folks who did come up with this idea, and that's Scott Freeman and Mary Pat Wenderoth. So they are both emeritus biology faculty at the University of Washington in Seattle. They're both teaching faculty, and they started publishing in the literature around 2005, 2007 or so. I'll put one of their original papers in the notes in CBE. They were publishing on this idea of adding structure to introductory biology, and they were teaching these massive intro bio courses at UW, 400, 500, 600 plus students at a time, on the quarter system. They're doing it in 10 weeks, really intense. And they wanted to know, well, what if we added supports? What if we added scaffolds? What if we added structure to our courses? How would that help? And does it help? Turns out, yeah, it helps a lot. And they've published many papers since then. I published on high structure papers. There's been a lot of literature on high structure and its successes. But what is it? And how does it work? So here's the idea. It starts with backward design, which we'll get more into in the next episode when we talk about objectives. But briefly, backward design came from Wiggins and Ty in the late 90s. And this is the idea that we start with our outcomes first. What do we want our students to be able to do? So if we keep that in mind, what do we want our students to be able to do first? Write measurable learning objectives. And again, we'll get more in detail on this in the next episode. Then we design our assessments. So we come up with how are we going to know, right? How are we going to know whether our students can achieve these objectives or not? We do that next. And then last, we design our activities. And this is what happens in class, before class, after class, the readings, the textbook, the schedule, the lab, whatever you might have. And we design all that last because we design it last so that we can give students practice so they can do well in the assessments, which we already have in our mind. We probably don't write them at the beginning of the semester or the beginning of the term, but you have them in mind, right? So you design those activities last to give students practice so they can do well in the assessments, which measure whether or not students can achieve the learning outcomes or objectives. So that's backward design. That can apply to any course, any discipline, any format, whatever. With high structure, that we break some of this into 3 different buckets. So we distinctly break out the before class, during class, and after class. So before class, we are going to hold students accountable, some kind of content acquisition, whether that's reading, watching videos, a combination, something else. And then there's some kind of also pre-class formative assessment. So that's going to be usually an online quiz through your learning management system. Maybe it's something they write and turn in at the beginning of class, something like that. And with that in mind, you're giving students a strong foundation. They can then come to class, hit the ground running. So when now you're in class, right? Students are prepared. Amazing. Yes, it's true. It does work. I'll get more in detail on that in a future episode about how to get students to buy in and do the pre-class work. But during class, now we can build, we can apply, we can go up a level from that pre-class work. We're going to do a lot of active learning. We're going to do a lot of group work. We're going to do also a lot of individual work. We're going to use case studies, data analysis, clickers, whatever you want to use to get students really engaged in the learning process. We'll have a whole episode devoted to this as well, and we'll dive in there and on the kind of the intricacies. But for now, though, I want to say that, remember, active learning can be both group or individual. It can be quiet or it can be really loud. As long as students have pencil and paper, as long as those gears are turning, you're doing active learning. Just keep that in mind. Are you going to lecture during class? Well, sure you are. Of course you are. Right? There's absolutely nothing wrong with lecturing. I am not an anti-lecture guy, but I am a choosy lecture guy. I want you to pick your spots. I want you to think about when you lecture and why you lecture and how that's going to relate to broader achievement of goals in your given daily lesson plan. So we'll talk more about that as well when we get to our episode on in-class activities and teaching. After class, we're going to have students review and practice, right? We're going to start this practice cycle. We're going to have probably some online homework, especially in STEM. A lot of us do online homework these days. We're going to have maybe some practice quizzes or old exams to try. We're going to have some drafts of reports or essays or projects or portfolios to work on. And we typically do this on a weekly basis to help students check in on their learning as they go. Again, we'll have another episode on after class work later on in this season. And then we finish that up with summative assessment. So these are your bigger pieces of assessment now. So this is going to be your exams, quizzes in class, maybe projects, portfolios, essays, lab reports, all these things. When it comes to quizzes and exams, more often is better, and that's shown in the literature. There's been some strong evidence showing that more frequent quizzing or summative assessment leads to better student outcomes. Students also like it better. They report higher student evaluations with that. So again, we'll do that later on in another episode in detail. But the point is, try to get away from what I had in college at Penn State, which was typically one midterm, one final in my biology courses there. Pretty tough. If you have a bad day, heck, if you had a bad 10 minutes, you could have totally wreck your grade. So more frequent assessment, better off there. And then lastly, with this model, we're going to have the idea of alignment. So alignment is such a good word. I made my card deck called alignment because when it comes to course design, everything needs to be tightly packed and aligned to each other. And with alignment, I think of it two ways. One, everything should be tied back to your learning objectives. So think about your objectives for the course and what you want your students to be able to do. Make sure things are aligned. All the topics, all the activities, all the quizzes, all the assessment, everything. If something's not aligned to a learning objective, well, why are you doing it? Get rid of it. I know we all have our little pet topics and content and videos and things we love, but if it doesn't fit in and it takes up time, one of the biggest complaints I hear, and it's in the literature too, from faculty about course design and teaching practices, there's too much content to cover. Well, again, if you don't have an objective to cover something, get rid of that content. It will help you tidy things up, slim things down. And then the other way alignment is important is if it is the pre-class, during class, and after class. So what happens, right? What you do during class has to build on before class. What happens after class should build on during class and after class. This is going to be, I'm doing right now with my hands kind of a little staircase approach here. So you want to think about that. We're building again. What happens during class builds on before class. What happens after class builds on during and before. So we want everything to be aligned and building and tight. If all you do during class is repeat what happened before class, guess what? Students won't want to do the pre-class work, right? You got to build and apply and dive in. And we'll touch on these concepts and ideas as we work through the lessons, work through the episodes too with this series. All right. So that's a little bit of the background of high structure. Again, a ton more detail in my book, a ton of free resources online too. I'll put some of those links in the chat, not in the chat, excuse me, in the show notes. And I will make sure you get those to check out. But if you do want to dive in deeper, definitely check out my book and other resources on my website there. So that's kind of the model that I use. Again, I've used that in all courses for virtually that I've taught over the years, whether they're face-to-face or online, sync or async, whether they're small or big. I've done this with as few as 10 students, done this with as many as 440 at a time. I've done it for STEM majors, for non-majors, engineering students, biology students, nursing, you name it. It works. But the thing is, and as I'm going to talk to you in this series, it's not a one-size-fits-all prescription. I'm not going to tell you this is the way to do it. This is the only way to do it. You have to do it like Justin. Not at all. You know your students, you know your faculty and institution and your culture way better than me. So you're going to have to tailor things. You're going to have to adapt. You're also going to have to iterate. It might not land perfect the first time. That's normal. It's okay. Take notes, reflect, try it again. We're going to have a whole episode devoted to that later on too, about reflection and thinking about how things went with your teaching and course design, how to make it better and improve on that data. So be willing to tinker, be willing to accept it's not perfect the first time, be willing to try again and iterate until you get it right. Okay, so keep those principles in mind too as we work through this series of episodes that I will give you templates, I will give you ideas, I will give you thoughts on how to make this all work. But again, it's not going to be perfect necessarily the first time. So keep that going too. And then one last thing here before we wrap is throughout this entire process, think about why are you doing this? Why are you either designing a brand new course or why are you redesigning a course to add more structure, to change things up? Or even just think, why are you spending your time listening to this, right? Well, I'm going to guess one of the reasons why for all this is that you care, which is amazing, right? You're taking your time to listen to this. You're taking your time to check out resources and taking your time to either, again, design brand new courses or redesign existing ones. That takes a special person that wants to do better, right? So you want to do better. You want to help your students succeed and you want to help yourself succeed too, right? It can get pretty stale to teach the same class over and over and over. I taught human anatomy 13 times in 4 years at UC Irvine. Um, I was kind of bored with it by the end, to be honest, right? So I had to tinker. I want to try new things. I want to update things. I want to try new activities because for me, I go to class. I knew what was coming. I knew that I used the same dumb jokes. I know what questions would be asked, right? Which is great. It's more predictable. It's less time, but you got to change it there too, right? So you're going to have some kind of probably intrinsic motivation for change. But again, that all comes from you caring as an instructor and you care about your course and you take pride in the work you do and you want to put out a good product for yourself and your students. Okay. So that's one. So keep that in mind too. And then the other thing to keep in mind and have fun. Seriously, have fun with this because yeah, it can be a slog for sure. There's so many things that go on with designing a course and teaching a course and all the fires you got to put out every day. It can be overwhelming, but try to find the fun parts with it. Try to be excited by it. Try to have a blast. So I'll end with that for this one. Be on the lookout for more episodes here coming forward in the coming weeks. We'll have I don't even know how many at this point, probably about 8 or so, but just stay tuned. And thanks for listening today. Please reach out if you have any comments or feedback, and I'm here to help you out however I can from the outside here on the audio here on the podcast, or again connect with me and we can talk more and see what I can do for you all. So check out my website to check all those resources. Check out the show notes, and happy teaching, everybody. Take care.